You think working the night shift at a fast food joint is just about cleaning up spills and handling drunk customers? Think again. Out here on the edge of Texas, there's a Subway where the sandwiches aren't the strangest thing on the menu. Shadows move without light. Some customers don't breathe, and every night could be your last unless you follow the rules. I learned them the hard way. The night was settling in like a slow, heavy fog as I turned off the highway and onto FM 969, a lonely stretch of Texas asphalt that seemed to lead straight into oblivion. The sky above was a black canvas, pinpricked by indifferent stars, and to either side of the road stretched nothing but low desert scrub, rustling faintly in the wind. It didn't feel like I was heading to work. It felt like I was driving into another world. The only landmark for miles was the silhouette of an abandoned quarry to the north, its jagged outline like the ribs of some long-dead beast. That, and the glowing green sign of a Subway franchise that had no business being out here. I pulled into the empty parking lot, the headlights of my car sweeping across cracked pavement and faded parking lines. The building itself looked normal enough, but there was something off about how it sat on the land. As if it didn't belong, or worse, belonged too well, like it had grown from the soil rather than been built. I shook the thought from my head, chalking it up to first-day nerves. I was Riley Parker, 20 years old, a sophomore studying computer science at the University of Texas at Austin. And for the summer, this desolate little sandwich shop was going to be my job. Money was the motivator, plain and simple. Between tuition, rent, and the ever-growing list of textbooks, I needed a gig. And the pay here was surprisingly decent for a fast food place. The night shift also worked perfectly around my class schedule. Sure, the location was remote, but I figured I'd just be making sandwiches and restocking napkins. Mindless, easy work. After a semester of debugging recursive algorithms and slogging through discrete math, a little brain-dead labor sounded like a welcome change. As I stepped through the glass doors at exactly 10:30 p.m., I was met by a blast of overly bright fluorescent lighting and the faint but unmistakable scent of processed meats and cleaning chemicals. Behind the counter stood a man in his late 40s, tall and angular, wearing the weary look of someone who'd long ago stopped caring about their job. His name tag read Greg, and as I approached, he gave me a tight-lipped nod, his eyes darting nervously toward the front windows. "You're the new guy," he said, and handed me a faded name tag with my name, Riley, scrawled in black marker that had bled into the plastic over time. His fingers trembled slightly as they brushed against mine. "Night shift's different. Night quirks, you know. Just follow the rules. Ms. Thaler will explain everything." His voice dropped on that last sentence, as if saying her name too. Loudly might summon her. I forced a chuckle, trying to break the weird tension. Rules like food safety and hand washing? Greg didn't laugh, he didn't even smile. "Just you follow them," he muttered, then gestured toward the back. "They're waiting for you. Good luck, kid." As he exited through the back door, I caught a glimpse of his hunched shoulders and hurried pace, like he was relieved to be getting out. The door swung shut behind him with a hiss of compressed air, and suddenly, I was alone. Well, not quite. Fresh meat. A voice sing-songed from behind the prep line. A girl with vibrant purple streaks in her black hair bounced into view, literally bounced. She had an almost cartoonish energy, like she'd been mainlining caffeine since birth. Her Subway uniform was adorned with tiny skull stickers, and her name tag read Zara in jagged black letters. "I'm Zara," she announced, grinning wide. "Resident ghost expert and sandwich artist extraordinaire. You're gonna love it here. Weirdest job you'll ever have, hands down." I blinked. "Ghost expert?" Before she could answer, another figure stepped into view from the back, tall, thin, and pale, with dark circles under his eyes like bruises that had never healed. His posture was slouched, but there was a sharpness to him, like a blade kept in the sheath just a little too long. "Don't scare him off yet, Z," he said, with a voice that was both exhausted and dryly amused. "He needs at least a week, before he runs screaming like the last guy." "I don't scare easy," I offered, trying to keep the mood light. Both of them laughed, not unkindly, but like people who knew something I didn't. We were interrupted by a soft sound. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, followed by the click of an office door behind the register. From it emerged a woman who, despite her subway uniform, looked like she belonged to another era. She moved with the composure of someone who'd lived 100 years and seen it all. Her silver hair was pulled into a tight bun, and her eyes, dark and unblinking, locked onto mine like searchlights. She didn't smile. She simply extended her hand. "Riley," she said, "welcome to the night shift." Her voice had a cadence that made my skin prickle, calm but commanding. When I shook her hand, I felt something like static shock, except warmer. Alive. "I'm Ms. Thaler," she continued. "The land here speaks at night. If you listen, you'll be fine." "The land speaks." Instead of answering, she reached into her apron and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Follow these rules, memorize them. Follow them exactly, without exception, without question." I unfolded the page. It was handwritten. The ink was slightly smudged, and the letters leaned in strange ways. There were 6 rules. Rules 1. Never make eye contact with drive-through customers after 1:11 a.m. Rules 2. Seal the front door with salt at 2:22 a.m. No exceptions. Rules 3. If a customer hums, mimic their tune exactly. Rules 4. If shadows move on the prep counter, scatter flour to still them. Rules 5. Ignore tapping from the basement hatch. Rule 6. If someone asks for the old path, say, "Closed for repairs," and turn away. "What is this?" I asked, feeling a chill crawl up my spine. "Rules," Miss Thaler said simply. "Follow them, and the night passes peacefully. Break them." She shrugged as if the consequences were obvious. Zara clapped her hands. "Oh, this is going to be fun." I wanted to laugh off the rules, I really did. I wanted to believe they were some elaborate inside joke to haze the new guy, a ritual passed down from employee to employee to see how gullible the rookies could be. But something about the way Ms. Thaler had handed me that list, and the way Greg had fled the store like it might eat him, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a game. This place breathed differently at night, and I could already feel its rhythm beating under the floor. Zara gave me the whirlwind tour with the enthusiasm of someone who didn't just love her job, she loved its madness. She pointed out the soda. "Machine. If it pours red without a cup under it, don't acknowledge it." Showed me the mop closet. "Don't open it after 2 a.m., no matter what you hear breathing," and explained how to reset the register if it flickered between currencies we didn't recognize. I kept waiting for the punchline. It never came. Theo, the third member of this nighttime trio, was less theatrical. He moved slowly, methodically, like a man conserving energy for a long-distance run he didn't want to finish. He didn't talk much, but when he did, there was a weight behind his words, like every syllable had to crawl out of some deep well inside him. For the first hour, everything was surprisingly normal. I learned how to wrap subs, restocked the cookie display, wiped down the sneeze guard. A few customers trickled through. Tired nurses, graveyard shift truckers, a dude in scrubs who looked like he hadn't blinked in 3 hours. Normal people, doing normal things. That helped. It made the place feel like just another job, just another night. But then came 1:11 a.m. It started with headlights sweeping across the front windows, casting long, trembling shadows on the floor. I turned toward the drive-thru instinctively, ready to take the order. But before I could step forward, Ms. Thaler appeared at my side like a ghost. "Remember Rule 1, she said calmly, "and Rule 3. Her voice held no urgency. But my stomach tightened anyway. I approached the drive-through window slowly, hyper-aware of my own breathing. Outside I could see the faint outline of a car, dark, nondescript, engine idling so softly it was almost imperceptible. The driver sat motionless, their face obscured by shadow. Not obscured by darkness, obscured by something else. Like their features were blurred, unable to be resolved by the human eye. Then they began to hum. The melody was low and haunting, unfamiliar but oddly resonant. It wasn't just a tune, it was a shape in the air, something that curled and twisted through the vents and clung to the glass. It pulled at something deep inside my chest, a primal thread I hadn't known existed. I stood frozen, unable to think, until Ms. Thaler's earlier words echoed again in my mind. Rule 3. If a customer hums, mimic their tune exactly. My throat was dry, but I forced myself to hum. The first note was shaky, off-pitch. The tune shifted, mid-air like it had noticed me, and was adjusting to test my accuracy. I tried again, matching the key, following its rhythm as best I could. The melody wound and curved like a snake through water, never staying still, never repeating quite the same way twice. Every second I sang, I felt something watching me. Not just the figure in the car, the land itself, listening. I didn't dare look directly at the driver, that was rule 1. Instead, I focused on the roof of the car, on the frame of the window, on the reflection of my own pale face in the glass. I could see the silhouette twitch occasionally, head tilting in unnatural angles, but I refused to meet its gaze. The air in the store felt thicker with every note I hummed, as though the walls were closing in. Finally, the customer let out a sigh, long, content, like something ancient settling back into hibernation. "Thank you," it said. Its voice wasn't a voice. It was dry leaves over stone, wind through bare branches, the sound of something old that remembered when the stars were younger. Then, with a slow mechanical groan, the car rolled forward and vanished into the night. I stood frozen at the window, my whole body trembling. I couldn't tell how long I'd been holding my breath until I let it out in one long gasp. Behind me, a voice spoke, warm and calm. "Well done," Ms. Thaler said. I turned to her, my voice barely a whisper. "What was that?" She met my eyes, and for the first time I thought I saw something close to pride in her expression. "A customer," she said simply. "One of many who passed through during the dark hours." Zara appeared beside me, her grin somehow both wide and fragile. "Pretty intense, huh?" she said, nudging me playfully. "That was your first test. Some people never recover from their first humming." I swallowed hard. "How often do they come?" "Unpredictable," Ms. Taylor answered. "But the land never forgets. If you treat its emissaries with respect, they usually leave you in peace." I nodded, not because I understood, but because I didn't know what else to do. I felt like I'd just walked through a storm and somehow ended up on the other side. Still standing. My hands were still shaking, but beneath the fear was something else, adrenaline maybe. Or the sick, tingling feeling of passing something that wanted you to fail. Back behind the counter, I found myself staring at the soda machine, at the counter, at the door. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. I had followed the rules, and I had survived the first night. The strangest thing about surviving a supernatural encounter is how quickly normal life tries to creep back in. After the humming incident, you'd think I would have sprinted to my car and never looked back. But I didn't. Instead, I wiped the counter. I restocked the drink lids. I found a Sharpie that wasn't dried out and labeled a bin of jalapenos. Maybe it was denial or shock, or that peculiar human instinct to force sanity into insanity-shaped spaces. but I went back to work like nothing had happened. Zara hummed as she cleaned the toaster oven. Not the melody from earlier, thank God, but something bouncy and off-key, probably from a playlist she kept locked inside her skull. Theo, as always, was methodical, quietly rinsing knives in the back sink. Every now and then he muttered something under his breath, words I couldn't catch. From anyone else, that might have been alarming. From Theo, it was business as usual. It was 1:50 a.m. when the next customer came in. The bell above the door chimed its synthetic greeting, and I turned to see a woman in scrubs, mid-30s, ponytail, exhaustion etched deep into her face. She offered a weary smile and ordered a turkey sub with double spinach and no mustard. I nodded, built the sandwich and rang her up. She paid in cash, thanked me, and left. Normal. Entirely, blessedly normal. I leaned on the counter afterward, half relieved, half disoriented. My hands still trembled from earlier, but they moved on autopilot. Muscle memory was winning the war against anxiety. I told myself that maybe that first customer had been some kind of elaborate prank. Maybe the foggy face and that voice like dead leaves could be explained. Heat distortion, exhaustion, imagination. Then I caught a glimpse of Ms. Thaler watching me from the office, her eyes unreadable but fixed, like she knew I was trying to pretend. Like she pitied the attempt. By 2 a.m., the store settled into a lull. Theo had disappeared into the walk-in cooler with a clipboard, muttering inventory numbers to himself. Zara was in the back, folding sandwich wrappers with surprising intensity, like the creases held ancient secrets. I took the moment to breathe, alone at the front counter with only the hum of the soda fountain and the soft buzz of the fluorescent lights for company. And then it began again. The air changed first. It became heavier, thicker, like soup, not hot but dense, as if I were standing underwater. The lights dimmed by a fraction, not enough to flicker, just less. Less light, less sound, less space between things. The refrigerator's low mechanical groan shifted in pitch, taking on a deeper vibration that seemed to resonate inside my bones. Even the smell of the shop changed. It no longer reeked of vinegar and onions, but something older, earthier, like dust from ancient stone and sage smoke drifting across a forgotten desert. I swallowed hard and stepped out from behind the counter, unsure what I was doing until I was already doing it. My body was moving before my brain had caught up. Something in the store had shifted, and it didn't feel like a prank anymore. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff with no wind, just gravity waiting. At 2:20 a.m., Ms. Thaler emerged from the back office holding a clear plastic container filled with salt. Not the paper packets we handed to customers. This salt was coarse, crystalline, shimmering faintly, even in the flat fluorescent light. She held it out to me without a word. I hesitated. "This is for the door?" She nodded once. "Rule 2. Seal the front door with salt at 2:22 a.m. No exceptions." I took the container with both hands, surprised at how cold it was, like it had just come out of a freezer. Ms. Thaler stood back, watching me with that same quiet intensity, as though judging whether I'd crack under pressure or rise to meet it. As the digital clock above the register ticked over to 2:22, I moved toward the glass entrance and unscrewed the lid. The salt poured out in a slow, steady stream, bouncing softly off the linoleum tiles as I drew a thin line across the base of the door. I felt ridiculous, like I was acting in some school play about witchcraft, but my hands didn't stop. The moment I completed the line, a sound echoed outside. It wasn't footsteps. It was subtler than that. A suggestion of movement, a pressure in the air, like something large brushing past a curtain just out of sight. Then I felt it. Presence. The kind of feeling that turns your stomach to water and raises the hairs on your neck without a whisper of cause. The salt shimmered faintly, almost like it was absorbing something, holding a boundary. "Good," Miss Tala said softly behind me. "The barrier holds." I turned to look at her, heart pounding. "What would have happened if I didn't do it?" She gave a faint, unreadable smile. "The land remembers, but it also forgives if you show respect." I didn't ask what that meant. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. The moment passed, the pressure lifted, and slowly, impossibly, normal returned. Zara reappeared with a fresh batch of cookies. Theo mumbled something about tomato shortages. I refilled the napkin dispensers, like I hadn't just stood guard against an invisible storm. But something had shifted in me. Something irreversible. There was no pretending anymore. This place wasn't weird. It was ancient, and I was starting to understand that normal was a lie we told ourselves, because the truth was too big to fit inside our skin. The salt line remained, long after the sensation of presence faded. I didn't dare sweep it up. I didn't even step near it. There was something sacred about that glowing barrier, something that didn't belong to the world of bread and pickles and punch card shifts. It shimmered faintly when I passed by, like it was remembering something I couldn't see, or warning something I didn't want to meet. At 2:30 a.m., the lull returned, but this time it felt deliberate, engineered, like the silence after a trap is laid. Zara kept herself busy organizing sources, but she avoided eye contact. Theo hadn't re-emerged since disappearing into the back freezer. I wondered if he was hiding or simply decompressing in cold isolation. I couldn't blame him either way. I stayed behind the counter, trying to center myself in the routine. Condiment bottles, gloves, bread racks. Things that had rules I understood. If I kept moving, kept my mind occupied, I wouldn't spiral into the truth. I was starting to realize that this subway wasn't built on haunted land. It was the haunting. The tapping started at 2:47 a.m. It was faint, barely audible, but it was there. 3 slow knocks, spaced evenly, coming from under the floor. I froze, spatula in one hand, sandwich wrapper in the other. Another set of knocks followed. Then another, always 3, always spaced like a heartbeat. I looked around. No one else seemed to notice, except Ms. Tala. She was by the register, eyes fixed on nothing, expression calm but unreadable. As if she'd been expecting this, I remembered the rule. Rule 5. Ignore tapping from the basement hatch. I didn't even know there was a basement. Not officially. But sure enough, as I followed the sound, feet moving on their own, I found it. A small square. Panel near the walk-in cooler, its metal cover dull with age. A sticker on it had long since faded, but I could just make out the words basement access beneath the grime. It looked like it hadn't been opened in decades. Tap, tap, tap. This time louder, closer, like the thing knocking knew I was standing. Right above it, I dropped the spatula. Every instinct in me screamed to open it. Curiosity had always been my best and worst trait. It made me good at code, good at solving problems. Patterns fascinated me. Unknowns demanded resolution. I could feel that same instinct clawing at me now. What was under there? What could knock in 3s but remain silent otherwise? What would happen if I just looked? I crouched, reaching a hand toward the handle before stopping just short of touching it. My fingers hovered inches from the cold metal. The sound had stopped. The silence was crushing. It felt conditional, like something was waiting. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. My breath caught. Then I stood. I backed away, slowly, deliberately, forcing myself to return to the counter. I picked up the spatula again and resumed wiping it clean, though my hands trembled with the effort. Behind me, the tapping resumed, but this time, it wasn't desperate. It was disappointed. It sounded patient, like it would wait as long as it had to. "You made the right call," Miss Taylor said behind me. Her voice came without fanfare, without drama, just the steady certainty of someone who'd seen this moment play out before. Discipline is what keeps you breathing here. I turned toward her. What's down there? Her head tilted slightly, and for a moment I thought she might actually tell me, but she just smiled. Quiet, tired, respectful. Something that doesn't care what you're curious about. Something that remembers when the sky was smaller. I didn't press. Some part of me didn't want the answer. Not yet. The rest of the shift passed in strange calm. No customers, no movement. Just the hum of the machines and the ever-present line of salt at the door. I could still feel it, like a string stretched taut across the universe, holding something at bay. At 3:20 a.m., Theo finally returned. He didn't say anything, just started restocking napkins with the slow mechanical rhythm of someone who wasn't really present anymore. His eyes didn't meet mine, but I saw something in them. Fatigue layered over fear, like he'd stared into something and refused to blink. I didn't ask. Zara, ever the chaotic balance to Theo's silence, launched into a story about a customer who once asked for a sandwich that didn't exist, a double-layered rye with venison shadow meat and bell peppers shaped like moons. She laughed as she told it, but her voice cracked at the end. I knew she remembered it too clearly. By 4 a.m., the atmosphere had loosened its grip. A trucker came through and ordered a tuna melt. The sun hadn't risen, but the darkness outside had lost its hunger. I started to feel like I could breathe again. As we cleaned and prepped for the day shift, I watched the salt line dissolve under my mop strokes. Not immediately, but grain by grain, like it had done its job and was ready to rest. I was exhausted, but beneath the fatigue was something else, a readiness, a strange calm. I knew now that every night would test me in some way. That the rules weren't warnings, they were agreements, rituals that kept the order in balance, that kept us in balance. But I also knew this. I hadn't imagined any of it. And whatever had been tapping down there, it would try again. By my third shift, the store no longer felt like just a workplace. It felt like a liminal pocket stitched between dimensions, suspended somewhere between routine and revelation. I'd started to notice things. The way the light above the sandwich counter never flickered unless someone lied. How the register sometimes rang up amounts in currencies I couldn't pronounce, or how the clock, always digital, always ticking, would occasionally glitch and show symbols instead of numbers, symbols I'd seen once in a dream I couldn't remember fully. But it was the walk-in cooler that finally broke the illusion of normalcy. It began around 1 a.m., shortly after a customer had ordered a meatball sub with extra cheese and fallen asleep at the wheel while waiting. Zara had to knock gently on the glass to wake him, her grin playful, but her eyes watching his reflection rather than his face. She said, "That's how you check if they're really asleep." I didn't ask what she meant. After he left, I headed to the cooler to grab more lettuce. The door always creaked slightly on the way in, as if groaning against something it didn't want to show. The chill hit me like usual, sharp, clean, unnaturally sterile. Metal shelves, plastic bins, pale vegetables stacked in clear containers, the whir of a fan spinning far too fast for comfort. But tonight, she was there. At first I thought it was a trick of the light, a shape between bags of shredded carrots and sliced turkey. Then it moved, shifted, and looked directly at me. She was my age, maybe younger, pale but not cold. Her body shimmered slightly, like heat waves rising off asphalt in summer. She didn't speak at first, just watched me with a mournful expression. That felt ancient, like sorrow passed down rather than felt. "You're the new one," she said eventually, her voice soft and echoing unnaturally in the small space. "Riley, right?" I didn't answer right away. My throat had locked. Every cell in my body screamed to flee, but something about her made me stay. Maybe it was how familiar she looked, like someone I'd passed on campus, someone who used to be real. "I used to work your shift," she said, stepping forward. Her form flickered slightly, like an old film reel catching on a projector. "Name's Leia. You—" My voice finally returned, though faint. "You're dead?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Not quite. Not alive either. Just stuck." She moved closer, no footsteps, no breath, just motion. "I made it to my 7th night. That's when the real choice comes. Ms. Tala tell you about that yet?" I shook my head slowly. She said nothing about a choice. "She wouldn't," Leia replied. "Not yet. But she will. Because the land doesn't just accept you. It tests you. It wants to own you. Or erase you." I didn't know what to say. My fingers had gone numb from the cold, or maybe from her presence. "What happened to you?" "I thought I could cheat it," she said simply. "Thought if I followed the rules perfectly, I'd find a way out. But that's the trap. The rules aren't a way out. They're a staircase. And on the 7th step, something's waiting." "What is?" Her form shimmered again. This time it flickered violently, like static in the air. "Don't trust her completely, Riley," she said, urgency entering her tone. "She serves the land first, not us. When the choice comes, she'll guide you toward it, but she won't save you from it." The cooler felt smaller, the air tighter, like reality itself was stretching thin between us. "What choice?" I asked again, desperate for clarity. "On the 7th night, the land offers you a deal. Stay and serve, and or leave and forget. But both paths cost something. One takes your freedom, the other, your curiosity." She looked at me then with an expression I couldn't decipher. Fear? Regret? Compassion? "I chose neither," she whispered. "And now I drift, caught in the space between, able to warn, never able to leave." A voice called from outside. "Riley?" Zara light, normal, grounding. "You in there?" I turned toward the door instinctively, but when I looked back, Leia was fading. "Be careful tonight," she said, her voice thinning. "The midnight wanderer comes for the ones who show promise." Then she was gone. No dramatic exit, no burst of light, just absence, like she'd been a breath of cold air that finally dissipated. I stumbled out of the cooler, lettuce container in hand, and nearly collided with Zara. She didn't ask. She didn't need to. "You saw her," she said quietly. I nodded. "Leia." "She was my friend," Zara murmured. "She worked here 6 months ago. Smart, curious. Thought she could figure it all out. Thought she was smarter than all of this." "What happened?" Zara looked away. Her voice dropped. "She broke the pact on her 7th shift, refused both choices, thought she could walk a 3rd path. Now she's between, a story, a shadow." I swallowed the lump forming in my throat. "Why didn't anyone tell me? Would you have listened?" she asked. "Would you have believed?" I didn't answer, because deep down I knew the truth. I was already walking Leia's path. The name lingered in my mind long after Leia vanished into the frost of the cooler, the Midnight Wanderer. It wasn't a title, it was a warning. It felt like the kind of name whispered across campfires, carried on wind through hollowed out. Trees never said twice in a row. I didn't know what it meant, but I could feel its weight even before the night shifted again. It happened around 2:20 a.m., just as I was preparing the salt for the threshold. The container trembled slightly, in my grip, not violently, just enough to make the crystals shift like they were responding to something beneath the surface. The air in the shop, already heavy from earlier, turned viscous. The silence sharpened. Every fluorescent bulb hummed at a slightly higher pitch, just enough to scratch the edges of my hearing. Zara was watching the windows. She didn't say a word, but her hands stilled. Even Theo looked up from the register, his usual tired detachment replaced by something older, more alert. And Miss Taylor. She emerged from the shadows like she'd been there all along, holding a bundle of sage in one hand and a single match in the other. "Seal the door," she instructed. I obeyed without question. The salt poured evenly, a pale arc across the threshold. As the last crystal landed, the glass began to darken, not fogging, not frosting, but dimming as if the outside world was receding into a different realm entirely. The temperature didn't drop. It didn't rise. It paused, suspended between a sensation, like the moment before a storm breaks. Then came the knock, not a tap, not a polite rapping. A knock, single, deliberate, and impossibly deep. It reverberated through the glass, through the floor, into my chest. My breath hitched. "The Wanderer," Miss Thaler whispered. "Stay calm." A tall figure stepped into view beyond the front windows. He, or it, wore a long coat, the kind you'd expect on a cowboy from an era too old for memory. A wide-brimmed hat shadowed his face, but I could feel his gaze. Not just looking at me, but through me, peeling back the layers of my skin, examining the marrow of my thoughts. The midnight wanderer glided toward the drive-through. He didn't walk, his coat didn't billow, his presence didn't cast a shadow. It was a vacuum, a figure-shaped hole where light refused to settle. He stopped outside the speaker box. The store went completely still. Then the speaker crackled. "The old path," he said. His voice was wrong. Not just in sound, but in concept. It felt like hearing a color you couldn't name or smelling something that had never existed. It bypassed my ears and lodged directly into my brain, like a splinter behind the eyes. I froze. Rule 6. If someone asks for the old path, say closed for repairs and turn away, simple enough. But I couldn't speak. The words clung to my throat like rust. My knees trembled. "Say it," Miss Thaler urged softly. I swallowed. "Closed for repairs," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "The path is closed." I started to turn away, just like the rule demanded, but the wanderer wasn't done. "You lie," he hissed. The speaker didn't transmit that sound. It leaked through the walls, through the floor, vibrating in frequencies I didn't know my body could register. "The path is open. It has always been open. You merely lack the courage to walk it." The salt at the door began to glow faintly. Just a flicker, but enough to cast alien shadows that didn't match the contours of the store. I kept my back to the window, fists clenched so tightly my fingernails dug into my palms. Behind me, I could feel him, his presence pressed against my spine, like cold metal. I could smell him now, sage burned too long, wet ash, and something that reminded me of rotting wood submerged in water. The glass didn't rattle. It pulsed like a heartbeat that didn't belong to any living creature. Then it stopped. No hiss, no footsteps, just absence. When I turned, the parking lot was empty. The darkness had thinned, the salt line dulled. The world had resumed its illusion of order. "Well done," Miss Thaler said. Her approval was quieter than usual, almost hesitant. I turned to face her, my voice hoarse. "What is he?" "The test of resolve," she replied. "He comes for those who think they're ready for more than obedience, for those who ask questions, even silently." I didn't say anything, because she was right. I had been asking. Even if I never voiced it aloud, my curiosity was a current flowing beneath everything I did. It was the part of me that had kept me alive and might one day damn me. Back behind the counter, Zara tried to lighten the mood. "Pretty gnarly, huh?" she said, chuckling nervously. "First wanderer visit? Don't worry, they always come. Once before the proving." I frowned. "The what?" She froze for half a second, then smiled too brightly. "Nothing, just Lingo. You'll see. Theo, nearby, murmured, "You always see eventually." I didn't ask again. I was too busy watching the salt dissolve into nothing. By my fourth night, the store had started to feel less like a place and more like a state of being. Time no longer moved in steady intervals, but in long stretches of nothing punctuated by moments of absolute terror. The rules weren't just guidelines, they were scaffolding. And I had begun to realize what happened to people when that scaffolding cracked. Theo was the first to show signs of wear. Not physically, not at first. His movements were still careful, still practiced. But there was a new tension in the way. He breathed. He grunted more than he spoke, and when he did talk, it was to himself. Sometimes I caught him staring at the window long after we'd closed, muttering things that sounded like reversed prayers. When I asked if he was okay, he blinked like he was coming out of a trance and gave me the same answer every time. Fine. Just tired. But tired didn't cover it. He was hollowing out. Zara, for all her manic brightness, wasn't untouched. Either. Her jokes came quicker now, more erratic, often trailing off into silence like she forgot where the punchline was supposed to land. Her laugh had an edge, and sometimes, when she thought no one was looking, she would just stop and stare at the drink fountain for minutes on end, as if daring it to do something wrong, and then there was the humming, not the haunting melody from the first night. Thankfully, that hadn't returned. No, this was different. A high-pitched, barely audible hum that seemed to rise from the floor itself. You could only hear it if you stood perfectly still. I noticed it first while stocking chips. Theo later confirmed it when he caught me standing motionless, head tilted. "You hear it too?" he asked. "What is it?" I whispered. He didn't answer, just walked away. I didn't press. That was becoming a pattern. Don't press. But the biggest shift came when a new employee arrived. His name was Kai. Fresh-faced, skinny, maybe 18. He had a mop of sandy brown hair, nervous energy, and a smile too wide for someone who hadn't seen what this place really was. His name tag looked brand new. Letters printed perfectly in black, not like mine, which had already begun to fade. "Hey, you must be Riley," he said as I clocked in. "They told me you'd show me the ropes." I shook his hand. It was warm and slightly damp. "Yeah, first night?" He nodded eagerly. "Zara said it was a weird place to work, but honestly I need the hours. Psychology major, UT freshman, trying to stay afloat, you know. I did. Too well." Zara appeared then, carrying a bin of sliced cucumbers, her grin stretched too wide. "Meet our newest victim," she chirped. "I mean team member. He's all yours tonight, Riley." Theo was nowhere in sight, which wasn't unusual anymore. Ms. Thaler appeared at precisely 11 p.m., as she always did, but her eyes lingered on Kai longer than they had with me. She studied him like a mathematician staring at an equation that might not balance. Then silently she handed him the same folded piece of paper I had received on my first night. Kai opened it and frowned. "Is this some kind of hazing thing?" he asked. "Like role-play rules?" "Follow them exactly," Ms. Thaler said, tone flat. "Questions can wait until dawn." Kai looked at me, half laughing, expecting me to break the illusion. I didn't, because it wasn't an illusion. I led him through the motions: how to prep the station, where to store the cleaning supplies, how to not over-toast the bread unless you wanted the mayonnaise to bubble strangely. He followed well, quick learner. Asked smart questions, listened. But I saw the doubt in his eyes every time he glanced at the rules again, as if they were part of some elaborate joke everyone was in on except him. Around 1:15 a.m., we had a brief rush, 2 late-night travelers, and a campus shuttle driver, all normal, all grateful, all gone in less than 10 minutes. "That wasn't so bad," Kai said, wiping his hands on his apron. "Honestly, this place just seems a little quirky. Not terrifying." I almost smiled. Give it time. Zara laughed behind us, but it was thin. We all start that way. By 1:30, Theo had reappeared, moving stiffly. I saw the way he eyed Kai, like a man watching someone walk into a collapsing building and choosing not to warn them. His face was gaunt, his eyes sunken, the dark circles now bruising into purple. "Don't get too comfortable," he muttered to no one in particular. Kai tilted his head. What was that? But Theo had already walked away. At 2 a.m., the shift settled into that strange calm I was learning to fear. I found myself glancing at the windows, waiting for some unnatural customer or inhuman whisper. But nothing came. Only the silence, the pressure, the hum. Kai was restocking sauces when he stopped and stared at the wall. "You hear that?" I turned. "Hear what?" He looked at me, pale. "It's like humming. Not music. Just vibration." I didn't answer, because I knew exactly what he meant. Cracks were forming, in the air, in the walls, in us, and something was waiting to slip through. There's a rule here that says if someone knocks at the back door between 2:10 and 2:40, do not answer. Do not look, do not acknowledge. It's a simple rule, a quiet one, but like many truths in this place, it isn't loud until it's already too late. It was 2:12 a.m. when it happened. I was restocking paper towels in the supply closet. Zara was messing with the playlist on the kitchen speakers, trying to drown out the hum that had been growing louder every night. Theo stood near the back hallway, silently refilling napkin dispensers by hand, motions slow and unfocused. And Kai was alone by the back. That night had been calm so far, eerily so. No customers since midnight, no flickers in the fluorescent lights, no mysterious entities wandering the drive-through, just a heavy stillness, like the store was holding its breath. Then the knock came. 3 soft taps. Not urgent, not loud, not even threatening, just patient, rhythmic, measured. Kai, half distracted, turned toward it immediately. I didn't see him move. I only heard it, that creak of rubber soles crossing tile. "Kai!" I yelled from the supply closet. "Leave it!" But he didn't hear me or didn't listen. "Guys!" his voice called out. "Someone's at the back." Theo dropped what he was holding. Zara stopped mid-step, and I swear, for a heartbeat, the entire store blinked. Kai approached the back door slowly, clipboard in hand. "It's probably a delivery guy or—" "Do not open that door," Theo snapped. The tone in his voice was something I'd never heard before. Sharp, guttural, almost inhuman. Kai stopped, hand hovering above the latch. "Why? What's the big—" The knocking returned, this time harder, not louder but deeper, like something ancient was pressing its knuckles into the world. Kai turned the handle. He didn't open it all the way, just cracked it. 3 inches, at most. That's all it took. A sound I can't describe poured through the gap. It wasn't a scream, it wasn't a voice. It was the absence of both. Like silence made physical, like every sound that ever died came rushing back in reverse. The lights overhead dimmed for a moment. Every screen blinked out. The air turned wet, like we were underwater without knowing it. And Theo, he collapsed. His knees hit the tile with a thud, and he let out a sound between a sob and a gasp. Blood began to drip from his nose, then his ears. His eyes rolled back. Zara rushed to Kai, slamming the door shut and shoving him back so hard he hit the mop sink. "What did you do?" she screamed, shaking. "Why didn't you listen?" Kai stammered, wide-eyed, trembling. "I thought there was someone. I didn't—" "It's never someone," I growled, kneeling beside Theo. His skin had gone pale and clammy. His lips moved, but no sound came. Just the faintest twitch of fingers and one word repeated over and over. "Red, red, Red. I pressed my hand to his chest. His heart still beat, but erratically, like it didn't know the rhythm anymore. Ms. Tala emerged from the office, calm as always, but with something darker in her expression. Something like grief. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't curse, she only said one thing. The pact was tested tonight and it was found wanting. She knelt by Theo, placing both palms on his temples. Her eyes closed, and for a moment, the lights above us turned red, not crimson, not blood. Something older, stranger, a red that shouldn't exist in this world. Theo let out a low gasp, then went still, alive but unmoving, frozen in place like a machine waiting to reboot. "Get him to the break room," Ms. Tala said softly. "He'll need salt and silence." We carried him carefully. His body was light, too light, like something had already taken part of him with it. His eyes fluttered beneath the lids, like he was dreaming a dream with teeth. Zara stayed behind to deal with Kai. I heard her shouting, not angrily, desperately. Her words blurred together, but I caught phrases like, "You don't get second chances here," and "This place remembers." I didn't blame her. I wanted to scream too. When I returned, Kai sat in the corner by the soda fountain, shaking, eyes red. "I didn't know," he whispered when I approached. "I thought it was just a weird job, just creepy rules. I didn't know it was real." "You do now," I said. "Is he gonna die?" I didn't have the heart to lie. "I don't know." That night, Ms. Tala posted a new rule on the wall, handwritten, still wet with ink. Rule 11. If a team member breaks Rule 3, do not speak to them again until instructed. Their fate is no longer in your hands. The weight of it hit me hard, because I had seen what the rules protected us from. I had felt the air shift when Kai broke them, and I had watched one of us pay the price. Theo wasn't just a co-worker anymore. He was a warning, and Kai, he was a mirror, a reminder of who I had been on my first night, wide-eyed, curious, stupidly brave. Now he was one mistake in, and there would be more, because this place doesn't forgive, it only waits. On my 7th night, the world changed. There was no warning, no gathering storm, no broken rule or echoing knock, just a quiet shift, as if reality exhaled and forgot how to breathe back in. It began the moment I crossed the threshold at 10:58 p.m. The bell above the door didn't ring. The lights didn't flicker. There was no smell of bread baking or bleach-soaked rags, just silence. Sterile. Heavy. Zara didn't greet me. Theo, still recovering, hadn't returned. Kai hadn't been seen since the incident, and nobody seemed eager to ask where he went. Even Ms. Tala's office light was dark. I was alone. The store looked the same on the surface. Sliced meats in their bins, ice humming softly in the soda fountain, napkin dispensers neatly aligned. But something deeper had shifted. It wasn't just the space, it was the feeling underneath. Like the foundation of this place had been lifted and replaced with something older, something watching. Then I saw the paper, folded perfectly square, resting where my time card usually sat. No name, no handwriting, just a single phrase printed in black ink. Tonight the proving ground opens. Enter before 11:13. My chest tightened. I didn't need instructions. I didn't need anyone to explain. Some part of me, some primal, wordless instinct, already knew what was expected. I walked past the counter, past the cooler where Laya had spoken to me, past the back hallway with the locked steel door, to the mop closet. It was open, and inside it wasn't a closet, it was a stairwell, not a metaphor, not a hallucination. A literal set of stairs descending into what looked like unfinished rock, spiraling downward like the spine of a giant. Cold. Air wafted up from it, not like freezer air, but deep earth. Soil turned long ago and never disturbed since. I hesitated at the top, then descended, With every step, the hum grew louder. Not electrical, not mechanical. It was the sound of something dreaming beneath the surface of the world, something dreaming of me. The further I went, the less the stairwell obeyed physics. The walls narrowed and widened at will. The steps curved and flattened. Sometimes they were stone, sometimes wood, once even flesh, warm, pulsing beneath my feet. I didn't look down again after that. Eventually the stairs ended, and I stepped into the proving ground. It looked at first glance like another subway. The layout was identical. Same sandwich counter, same coolers, same prep tables, but the walls pulsed slightly. The ceiling bled light in irregular patterns. The meat bin was empty except for rows of eyeless faces, each one silently screaming. A bell rang behind me. Ding! And then I heard the first voice. "You shouldn't have come alone." I turned. It was Theo, or something wearing his shape. His uniform was soaked in ink-black fluid. His eyes were hollow and his smile stretched just a little too far. "Is this part of the test?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "Everything is the test," he said. "You just didn't know when it started." He stepped forward, I stepped back. "I'm not here to fight," I said. He tilted his head. "You're not here to win either. You're here to choose." And then he melted. No scream, no gore, just collapse. His body turning to vapor, his voice echoing as he faded. "One must stay, one must serve. The rest are offered to the ground." The lights dimmed. From the back hallway came the smell of burnt sage, the sound of rattling chains. The hum spiked to a painful pitch, and the rules, the ones I had memorized, began to appear on the walls, scrawled in blood and ash. Do not look at the back door. Do not answer the knock. Do not lie to the shadows. Do not speak to your reflection after 3 a.m. They shifted, warped. Do not think, do not hope, do not wish for escape. Then I heard her voice. "Laia." "Riley," she whispered from somewhere unseen. "You're further than I ever got." But it's not. Over, not even close. I turned in circles, heart hammering. "Where are you?" "Between," she said. "Watching, waiting, hoping you'll make the choice I couldn't." "What choice?" "The only one that matters. When the entity offers you the apron, will you take it?" "What?" A door opened behind the sandwich counter. A figure stepped out. It wasn't Ms. Thaler, but it looked like her. Older, taller, limbs too long, eyes pure black. She wore a subway uniform stitched from shadows and held a blood-soaked apron in one hand. She didn't speak. She only extended the offering. The apron. I stepped back. The world trembled. I heard Zara screaming from some unseen place. I saw flashes, Kai, running through a forest of fluorescent lights, pursued by something that walked on dozens of hands. I saw Theo curled in a fetal position, his body slowly crumbling into sand. The entity waited. I took one step forward, then another. I looked at the apron. It was warm, alive, waiting. I didn't take the apron. Not yet. I stood there in the uncanny glow of the proving ground, staring at the outstretched hand of the figure that resembled Ms. Thaler, only not. She was too tall now, her limbs bent in the wrong places, and her skin flickered like faulty film. The apron pulsed in her grip, dark green with flecks of crimson at the seams, and though she said nothing, I could feel what it offered. Security, survival, a way to belong. I had always hated the green tile floors of Subway, the way they felt greasy even when clean, the way the grout never quite matched, the sound of shoes squeaking on them at midnight when no one else was around. But in that moment, those tiles became something else, a threshold, a final line. Beneath one of the tiles, I noticed movement. The floor rippled just slightly. I squinted. One square tile just left of center didn't match. It wasn't misaligned or chipped, it was breathing. I could see it now, slow, subtle inhales that pushed tiny bubbles of air from the grout line. It pulsed like a sealed lung under glass. The green tile. I don't know why I knew to call it that, but I did. It wasn't just a floor tile, it was a lid, a trapdoor, a mouth waiting to open. The false Tala tilted her head, following my gaze. "You found it," she said, though her lips didn't move. The words entered my skull directly, like thoughts I didn't invite. "That's where it all begins. That's where the first blood was spilled. What happens if I step on it?" I asked. She smiled, awful and wide. "You descend." I looked around. The rules were gone from the walls. The sandwich counter had melted into bone and brick. The cooler hummed a lullaby I had once heard in a dream. The proving ground was no longer pretending to be a restaurant. It was showing me its true shape. I took a step toward the green tile. She didn't stop me. Another step, closer. The air around it shimmered like heat over asphalt. My body screamed not to get any nearer. My mind, however, leaned in. "What is this place?" I whispered. "A contract," she replied. "Long before the store was built. Long before the logo. Long before bread had names. A pact was made. Feed the hunger beneath, and it shall leave the world above untouched. You mean this subway is feeding something?" She nodded. "Not just this one, dozens, hundreds. Some are closed, some still thrive. But they all lead back here, to the first mouth, to the original proving ground." I felt dizzy, like my memories were slipping, rewritten. "You knew," I said. "All of you. Theo, Zara, Ms. Tala. You knew this wasn't just a haunted store. We were chosen," she said simply. "Tested. Those who pass become wardens. Those who fail nourish the deep." My eyes fell to the apron. "And what am I?" She took a slow step forward. "You are potential, rare. The system likes you. It's watching even now." Then I heard a voice from below. Not hers. "Liar. Don't step on it," she whispered. That's what I did. That's why I'm still here, trapped, alive, in pieces. My foot froze mid-air above the tile. "Riley," the not Tala crooned, voice silk and ash. "Laya failed because she hesitated. She thought there was a choice. There isn't." "I thought you said I was being offered one," I said. "You are, but only in the way flames offer light. They will still burn you. The question is, do you want to be burned with purpose?" I dropped my foot, not on the tile beside it. She didn't flinch. Instead, she extended the apron again. "Then take it." I reached out, and then I pulled the knife from my belt, the one we used to cut sandwiches, and drove it through the apron. Before it could touch me, the reaction was instant. The proving ground screamed, the walls convulsed. The floor split. The air turned to static and ash. The Not Tala burst apart like glass shattering inward, and a flood of whispering voices poured from her remains. The green tile cracked, and from it a chasm opened. A massive eye stared up at me from the dark beneath the earth. Not an eye of flesh or pupil, but of concept. An eye made of every gaze ever feared in every nightmare. It saw me, and it saw everything I had ever done, every failure, every sin, every hesitation. Then it blinked, and the floor collapsed. I fell. Not through space, but through memory. Every shift, every night, every rule, every voice. And then, silence. Awoke on the store floor. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Theo sat on a chair, whole and healthy. Zara cleaned the drink machine. Ms. Tala was back behind the counter, and no one said a word about what had happened. Only this. A new rule was pinned beside the others. Rule 12. If you reach the green tile and return, you are no longer just staff. You are a warden. Wear the uniform, guard the mouth, pass the test forward, and there, folded neatly on the prep table, was a new apron. This one wasn't green, it was black. I used to think the rules were there to protect us. Now I know better. They're not safeguards, they're locks, ritual bindings. Words woven into reality like nails hammered into the coffin of something ancient, something that should have stayed, buried. And the most dangerous of them all wasn't even listed when I first arrived, Rule 7. For 6 nights I followed the rules like gospel. I survived what others hadn't. I saw the green tile and came back breathing. But on the 8th night something changed. Not in the store, though that too, but in the list. I was wiping down the sandwich counter when I noticed it. Right there on the laminated printout taped beside the microwave, between Rule 6 and Rule 8, was a new line of bold black text. Rule 7. If you see yourself standing in the parking lot, do not break eye contact. Do not blink. Do not move. Wait until it leaves. I froze. I hadn't seen that rule before, and I knew every rule like my own heartbeat. I had recited them nightly. I had copied them by hand in my notebook just to feel in control. This wasn't a rule that had appeared after a meeting or a quiet warning from Ms. Thaler. It had manifested, like a splinter surfacing from flesh, and then the bell above the door jingled, but no one had entered. I walked around the counter, heart pounding, and peered through the store windows out into the parking lot. And that's when I saw him. Me. Same. Uniform. Same black apron, same tired eyes. Standing just outside the yellow-painted handicap spot, beneath the flickering lamppost. His posture was wrong, though. Too still. Like a statue that had learned how to breathe. He didn't wave, he didn't approach. He just stared through the glass, through me, as if counting down the seconds I'd notice he was there. My first. Instinct was to move, to run to the back or scream for Zara. But I remembered the rule. Do not break eye contact. Do not blink. Do not move. So I stared. And he stared back. It was like staring into a photograph of myself that didn't know it was a photo. My double's expression didn't change, but his eyes did. They darkened, not in color, but in weight. The longer I held the stare, the heavier my chest became, like I was inhaling every bad decision I'd ever made. He lifted a hand, placed it flat against the glass. I didn't move. I couldn't. Behind me, I heard Zara whisper, "You see him, don't you?" I didn't speak. "If you talk," she said, "you invite him in." I wanted to ask how she knew, but I understood now. She'd seen her version. Theo probably had too. Maybe that's what broke him. The doppelganger pressed its forehead to the glass, and then slowly it smiled. Not with warmth, with ownership. It knew me. The parts I buried. The parts I wore like armor. The nights I had lied to myself. It knew the real me, the unwritten me. I felt a tear slip down my cheek. The reflection didn't cry. It licked its lips. Then it blinked and was gone. Just like that. The lot was empty again. I collapsed behind the counter, my breath ragged. Zara was beside me in seconds, holding a wet rag to my forehead. "He didn't touch you?" she asked. I shook my head. "You didn't blink?" "No." "Good," she said. "That means he'll try harder next time." I wanted to laugh, but my throat was too dry. "Why now?" I croaked. "Why this rule?" Zara's expression darkened. "Because you're a warden now. You're not just surviving anymore, you're remembering." "What does that mean?" She looked toward the storeroom door, then back at me. "Every warden eventually meets their echo. It's how the system ensures balance. You were never meant to live this long without consequences." I stared at the rule sheet again. It hadn't changed. Rule 7 sat there, black and certain. Realize something then? The rules weren't all posted from the beginning. They appeared as needed, as deserved, as earned. Some people never made it to Rule 4. Others didn't survive past Rule 1. Rule 7 wasn't new. I was. Later that night, Ms. Tyler called me into the break room. She stood at the whiteboard, erasing something I couldn't quite make out. "You saw him?" she said. "Yes." "You didn't fail, that's rare." I didn't respond. She turned. "You want to know what he is?" I nodded. She stepped closer, her voice low. "He's what's left behind when you almost become something else. The version of you that would have broken, that wanted to break but didn't." I swallowed hard. "Why does he come now?" "Because you've passed the initial trial. Now the system tests your consistency. Rule 7 isn't about one night. It's about many. So he'll come again," she nodded. "Each time stronger, closer, more familiar. One day he'll wave, the next he'll speak. If you ever respond, it's over." "What happens if I blink?" She didn't answer, because we both knew he steps in and I step out forever. There comes a point where surviving isn't enough. Not when the rules keep changing. Not when your own reflection stalks you from the parking lot. Not when every breath you take feels like it's borrowed from someone who didn't make it out. After Rule 7, something in me broke, but not in the way they wanted. I didn't become weaker. I didn't beg for clarity. I became curious. And curiosity in this place is a form of defiance. I started asking questions, quietly at first, testing the boundaries, testing Ms. Thala, testing the space. Why did the rules adapt? Who made them? Why did the green tile feel like a heartbeat beneath the store? No one gave answers, just warnings. Zara looked at me with fear in her eyes. Some doors don't open, some shouldn't. But one night after closing, I found a key taped under the prep table. It wasn't physical, it was written on wax paper with grease pencil, almost invisible unless held to the light. If you truly wish to know, walk through the mop closet at 3:33 a.m. without salt, light or fear. They will speak with you once, only once. That night, I didn't bring a flashlight. I didn't bring salt, only myself. And a simple offering, the apron I refused to wear. I left it folded at the top step of the mop closet, then descended. No stairs this time, just a fall, not physical, experiential. I fell through moments, through the faces of everyone who had ever worked here, everyone who had failed. 1,000 lifetimes compressed into seconds, screams layered over prayers, whispers soaked in grease and shame. Until suddenly, silence. Stood in a space that wasn't space. A circular void lit by nothing, and yet I could see. The walls pulsed like lungs, and in the center floated shapes. Not bodies, not shadows, impressions. Like memories that had learned to speak, there were 3 of them. One whispered like wind through dying leaves. One buzzed like a hornet's nest full of secrets. The last sang in reverse, a child's lullaby played backward at the wrong speed. They didn't have names, but they were the architects of the pact of the mouth of the rules. They spoke not in words but in understanding, like a dream you wake from and already know. You seek truth. I nodded, then offer weight. I didn't know what that meant until the void presented me a scale. 2 sides, one already full. I saw memories stacked like meat slices. My first shift, the night Kai opened the door, the moment Theo fell, the time I almost stepped on the green tile. These weren't memories. They were offerings. The cost I had already paid. On the other side, it was empty. I understood what they wanted. More, I whispered. Knowledge requires equal loss. They would tell me everything, but only if I was willing to lose something. Of equal weight. Not just time, not just fear. Self. They showed me flashes of what I could learn. The entity beneath the green tile was once a god of hunger, worshipped by the starving in lost cities, buried under fast food franchises. The rules were written in grease, blood, and corporate policy. refined over centuries by those who made deals not just with demons, but with marketing firms who understood the true cost of a brand that couldn't die. The uniforms were sigils. The menu was ritual. Every sandwich made according to code kept the mouth fed and the world spinning one more day. And the wardens? We were interpreters, conduits for rules that changed depending on who survived last. Why me? I asked. Their answer came like thunder in my marrow. You remember. Others forget. You observe. Others obey. You questioned the pattern. That makes you dangerous. That makes you ours. And the price? It wouldn't be death. It would be a memory. One memory. One core truth, traded for permanent understanding. I looked down at the scale again. My mother's face flashed across it. The day I got this job, the last time I laughed without fear, I reached out and chose the laughter. It disappeared, gone. Not just forgotten, removed. In its place, knowledge poured in. I fell again, but this time forward, back into my body, back into the store. Zara was shaking me. You were gone. You were just standing there for hours. It had only been a minute, maybe more. I looked at her and smiled sadly. What's so funny? She asked. I shook my head. Nothing, I can't remember the last time I laughed. She frowned but said nothing more. And when I looked at the rules again, they had changed, not in number, but in font. In tone, they were mine now, and in the corner of the breakroom wall where the calendar used to hang, a new note appeared, handwritten in ink that shimmered like oil. Negotiation complete. Warden active. Memory rendered. Protocol. Begin rewrite. The fee. Spirits had told me the truth, but now I was part of it. And truth here always comes with a receipt. The day after the negotiation felt wrong. I don't mean off or unsettling in the usual ways I had come to expect from the subway. I mean wrong in a structural, foundational sense, like someone had taken the blueprints of the universe, rewritten them in a rush, and then painted over the cracks with green and beige linoleum. I showed up for my shift like always, but something had changed in the layout of the store. It was barely noticeable, just a few inches here and there. The sandwich counter felt farther from the drink station. The mop closet had a fourth hinge now, even though it only needed 3. The hallway to the freezer was a little longer, a little darker. Zara didn't mention it, but I saw it in her eyes. She was walking more cautiously, listening more often. She was afraid of me, because I wasn't just an employee anymore. I was the warden now, and I think she knew. The rules had changed again, though this time not on paper. They were etched into the walls, only visible at certain angles like ancient carvings revealed by candlelight. New phrases I hadn't written, hadn't approved, now lingered above the sink behind the soda fountain under the cutting boards. If the fridge hums in reverse, do not acknowledge the song. If a co-worker disappears mid-sentence, continue their task in silence. If the meat sweats blood, do not throw it out, do not look away. No one had written these. They had appeared after the spirits accepted my offering. After they rewrote a part of me I could no longer name. I started hearing things the others didn't. Whispers behind the bread oven, breathing behind walls. The low rhythmic thumping beneath the green tile became clearer, like a heartbeat syncing with mine. I could feel when someone broke a rule now. It hit me in the gut, sharp and sudden, like static shock wrapped around bone. When Theo walked in on his first night back, I knew immediately that he hadn't seen the same things I had. He gave me a long look, hesitation, confusion, maybe pity, and said nothing. But he didn't meet my eyes after that. Not once. Zara, on the other hand, grew distant. We used to joke, to vent, to hold each other up with sarcasm and shared horror. But that faded. Now she flinched when I walked too close. She asked fewer questions, She left 5 minutes early every night, never saying goodbye. One night, as we were closing, she left a note on the prep table. It wasn't addressed to me, but I knew who it was for. This place has its hooks in you. I'm not going to wait around to see how deep they go. Don't follow me. I didn't. I watched her walk out at 2:59 a.m., a full minute before the rules said it was safe. I expected something to happen. A claw from the shadows, a siren, a scream, nothing. Just silence. She was gone. I was alone again. The spirits didn't speak to me after the negotiation, not directly, but I could feel them watching. Every choice I made in the store echoed in the walls. When I disposed of rotten produce, the lights flickered. When I rewrote a rule, the floor shifted. And when I stood still, truly still, I could hear laughter from beneath the tile. My laughter, the one I had traded. That night, I tried to write a new rule, something simple, something human. Rule 13, don't forget who you were. Wrote it in marker. I taped it to the wall. By morning it was gone. In its place was a single sentence scratched into the stainless steel prep table. Who you were is no longer relevant. The words weren't cruel, just true. I began keeping track of the shifts in a black notebook. Dates, rule anomalies, temperature drops, flickering light intervals, employee behavior. I was building a new pattern, something bigger, something older than the store. The subway wasn't just haunted. It wasn't cursed. It was alive, and it was growing. Every time someone quit, a new name appeared in the employee drawer before the end of the day. People with no resumes, no contact info. They just showed up wearing uniforms that fit perfectly, with smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. The cycle was accelerating, and I was starting to forget. Not the rules, those were clearer than ever, but memories of childhood, of school, of why I even took this job in the first place. I remembered the shifts, I remembered the proving ground, but I couldn't remember my sister's voice, or what city I grew up in, or my own middle name. The spirits hadn't stopped at one memory. They were still feeding, and I was letting them, because the deeper I went, the more I understood. And the more I understood, the less I belonged anywhere else. I think that's the aftermath, really, not death, not madness. Absorption. This place doesn't kill you. It uses you. It rewrites you one shift at a time until you can't leave. Not because of fear, but because there's nowhere else you'd make sense. I stand behind the counter now, most nights alone. Customers come and go, unaware of the rules that protect them. I serve them sandwiches. I mop the blood when it bubbles from the freezer drain. I listen for the wrong hum from the fridge. And I wait, because I know what comes next. The final rule, the one no one's written, down yet, but I can feel it forming, and when it appears, I'll be ready, even if it has my name on it. It started with curiosity, not courage, not defiance, not even desperation. Just a small, persistent need to understand why things were the way they were. That's the true infection. The first whisper. The one that leads you to read the rules. Twice, then a third time. The one that keeps you asking why salt works, why mirrors crack at 2:15 a.m., why the green tile breathes when you're alone. That's what got me. And now I see it clearly. Curiosity isn't just dangerous in this place. It's invitational. The subway doesn't punish you for asking. It rewards you with responsibility, with access, with knowledge you can never unlearn. And in doing so, it buries you beneath the weight of understanding until all that remains is a single reshaped truth. You were chosen not because you were strong, but because you couldn't help but look. I've been working this job for almost a year now, maybe more. Time blurs here, the calendar pages melting like wax. We don't celebrate birthdays. We don't mark holidays. But the signs of legacy are everywhere, in the way the air changes before the arrival of a new hire, in how the shadows linger a second too long when someone finally breaks. In the notebook I found behind the oven, written by someone named Cass, who warned in frantic red ink, "It's not the rules you should fear, it's the silence between them." I've written that sentence down over 50 times in my own logbook. I still don't fully understand it, but I feel its truth. Just like I feel the weight of the final rule pressing against the corners of my mind, waiting to be born. That rule doesn't exist on paper. Not yet, but it lives inside me. It hums through my bones when the walls breathe. It guides my hands when I rewrite policies that seem mundane to corporate, but hum like spells to those of us on the inside. And lately, the subway has gone quiet. Not in the literal sense. The drink machine still growls, the freezer door still knocks once at 4:17 a.m. But spiritually, metaphysically, the mouth has closed. For now. Because it's full. I helped feed it. Not with flesh. Not with blood. With memory, obedience, pattern. I've taught others, quietly, carefully, the way Ms. Tala once taught me, not through lessons, but through presence. There's a girl now named Elise, new, bright-eyed. She noticed the reflection in the oven her first week and didn't tell anyone. That's how I knew. She'll make a good warden if she survives the next cycle. And Kai. Kai is still missing. Or maybe Kai isn't missing, just elsewhere. Shifted into a space that overlaps, but no longer interacts. I hear footsteps sometimes, in the cooler, even when I'm alone. Not ominous ones, familiar ones, rhythmic, hesitant, like someone waiting for permission to come back. Or maybe Kai's still watching, waiting to see what I become. Theo, on the other hand, is gone. Left 2 weeks after I returned from the spirits negotiation. No words, just his name tag, placed face down on the register. I think he saw what I was becoming. I think it scared him. I don't blame him, because now I understand the system. This subway isn't a location. It's a conduit, a thin place, a crossroad between what humanity believes is real and what actually is. The meat slicer, the shift schedule, the oven timer, they're all just modern artifacts in a temple that long ago forgot it was sacred. We wear uniforms instead of robes, we serve sandwiches instead of sacraments, but the offering is the same. Compliance. And curiosity. That's the real legacy of this place, not terror, not violence, but the slow creeping substitution of your identity for its purpose. I've watched 3 new employees rotate through in the last month. Each of them found a different rule first. Each of them broke a different one. Each of them left behind a sound I still hear in my dreams. And yet, I keep working. I keep updating the rule sheet. I keep placing the salt in the corners after every closing shift. I keep warning the new hires in ways that don't sound like warnings. And I watch. I wait, because I know one day someone like me will come in, someone curious, someone who reads too much into a stain on the freezer floor, someone who notices that the bathroom mirror only reflects you if you hum, someone who starts asking questions no one taught them. And when they do, I'll be there, not to stop them, but to prepare them. That's what Ms. Tala did for me. That's what I now do for Elise. That's the role of a warden. We don't save people. We curate them. We observe who survives the rules, who adapts, who breaks, who remembers. And when one of them makes it far enough, deep enough, we offer them the same negotiation I was given. The same choice. Trade a piece of yourself for the map of the maze. And if they accept, then the subway continues. The mouth stays fed, and the world above stays just normal enough to believe monsters don't exist. But if they decline, if they rebel, well, that's when Rule 14 appears. The one I haven't written yet, the one I can't write, because it's theirs to create. That's the true legacy of the curious. We don't destroy the system, we inherit it, and in doing so we ensure it evolves. So if you're reading this, if by some strange alignment of fate or algorithm you've come across my words, then I have only one question for you. Have you ever looked at a fast food uniform and felt like it was watching you back? If so, welcome. Your shift starts soon. Thank you for venturing into the darkness with us. If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't keep the fear to yourself. Leave a comment, smash that like button, and share this video with someone who dares to listen in the dark. We release terrifying true stories every week, so be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what's lurking in the shadows. This is High Scare Stories, where nightmares don't end when the video does. Until next time, stay safe and stay scared.